Feels weird to be back on the podcast after such a long break.
It does.
Yeah. I bet our many fans were just like clamoring that whole time.
You should have seen the the Twitter call outs we got and all the other social media. I mean, people were they're lining up.
They were. They're raving that we didn't have a podcast, any more episodes.
We told them though. We said it was we're gonna take a little break.
We gotta set expectations. I mean, if we want, we can start with a little quick. I don't want to do too long, but a quick 2020 retro. Since we decided not to do these every week, I thought it might be cool to do just a quick one of things we want to try to do in 2021 with the podcast or whatever else. Doesn't have to just be with this. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's a 2020 retro of the podcast, not of like 2020 in general, right? Because
I guess if you want to take it a different direction, that's fine.
Yeah, I'm just happy 2020 is in the past now. I'm good moving on to 2021,
which hasn't been much better since. But
I've
heard some. Yeah, we'll see how.
But there's hope for a new year, so that's the good part.
Hope is
all you can do is control. I only have a set of things I control, so that's all I worry about. I don't worry about the other stuff.
It's a good mindset.
It's like with a retirement fund or stocks. I control what I put into it and what it goes into, but I don't control the market. So I just am like, whatever. I'll throw them up here as you guys say anything.
I got nothing.
Okay.
Tory.
Maybe we try to do a live broadcast sometime. I don't know how that would work. It's just a idea out there.
Like have a chat room or something that people can, or just like stream it.
Maybe just stream it.
I think that'd be really fun.
Even if no one says anything, but if they happen to, then
yeah,
we build up to it as far as on social or something.
Yeah, and related, I'd love to see if we could at least get some ideas from listeners, because I know we have a couple of, we have a growing fan base, and I'm sure that they have ideas of things that maybe we'd want to talk about. So listeners, if you are listening and have something you want us to talk about, where should people reach out to us? I'm not sure what's easiest.
We have an email, don't we?
Yeah.
UXFiles
at gmail.com. Oh, no, it's not that. UXFiles podcast.
Hold on. Actually, we might have wow, this is so bad. I think we might have an email address. Let me look at our website real quick. Oh, yeah. It's hello@uxfilesshow.com.
Oh, we have an official email.
Yeah.
Whoa.
You can also go to our website and go to the contact page, and there's a little contact form if you don't want to email us the other way. It's all there. hello@uxfilesshow.com.
Oh, show. Yeah. So I think that would be cool.
I love that idea. I think like whether it's topics to talk about or software to review or designs to review, I think there are all sorts of things that could come out of that. So that would be fun.
Yeah. And the thing I have in the sad column is just, I think sometimes, at least when I listen back to it and what I say, sometimes I'm not providing enough like good solid not that we're giving feedback to anyone, but like good solid ways to improve on stuff, as opposed to just trying to pick apart a design, trying to find a way to build it back up. So that's something I personally want to try doing a little bit better at.
Yeah, I completely agree. I felt like in general we've done a decent job of offering solutions, but there may be a little bit of rantiness too, where we're just complaining about or talking about what we dislike, and not offering constructive feedback as much. So I think that's a really good point.
So are we up for?
I never had any issues.
Never. We never have issues in our tech on this podcast.
That's right.
We should
fire our tech guy.
We didn't just cut out 10 minutes of this podcast for technical difficulties. News and discussion.
Yes.
I think that's a good transition point.
I'm a little sad, guys.
Same.
What are you
It's the end
sad
of an
about?
era. Well,
Tell us, John.
if you remember back to the very first episode of this podcast, this fixture in the design podcasting community,
Yeah.
I had a little bit of a rant about a financial institution named Simple Bank that I use and have used basically since it began. And the users of Simple Bank got an email this past week saying that Simple was being closed down.
No way.
So the only conclusion that I can come up with is that they heard our podcast. They realized how bad their budgeting features were, and they decided, you know what, it's not worth it. Let's shut it down, people.
Dude, that's crazy.
But it's hard to believe. It was in my opinion, it was the best of the challenger banks. UI design, user experience. In general, I had really good customer support experiences. They had joint accounts, which I look for, and a lot of these little bank accounts that are popping up everywhere don't do joint accounts. They did a lot, and they were the first, or at least one of the first. And now they're going away. So there's no timeline yet as far as when they're actually going to shut down, but I'm actively searching for a new bank.
Did they give any alternatives to?
So they're owned by BBVA,
Yeah.
and BBVA, I believe, was just bought by PNC, which is funny. And so I think all Simple users their accounts will eventually turn into BBVA. So I don't have to necessarily go anywhere if I didn't want to, but I'm looking for a similar experience and a similar, situation as Simple offered, which is there's really nothing quite like it out there, and all the good ones from a UI and like, hey, this seems cool and like something I would enjoy using, like they're all pretty new and don't have some key features. Like some don't have paper checks, which I usually don't use, but in some rare cases I need. Most of them don't have joint accounts, which I really, want to be able to use with my wife. So it's been kind of frustrating.
What I really hope is that PNC, BBVA takes Simple's like actual code base and like makes a portal, whether it's a beta portal or something that's like basically based off of that. It seems unlikely, but that would be so great because PNC is like improved technically theirs, but it's really bad. Like it's very bad.
Yeah.
It doesn't look good. It only takes up like this little tiny portion of your screen. They have this like virtual wallet that's like their new thing, but it's
I
like
haven't used that.
Yeah, but it's like a separate thing you go click on, and then it's like it doesn't look good. It just looks like newer. Like it doesn't look good.
Yeah.
So that's my hope. It seems unlikely, but I really hope that they don't just throw away all of the like pretty good user experience that they had built up.
I'm hoping.
With PNC, are you using their app or their
The app is good.
website?
I mean, it's not
Yeah,
great,
okay. That's
but
what
the
I'm
app
saying.
is good. Okay, and
Yeah.
it works. Like it's
You
fast.
can't do budgeting on that, really. It's
No.
just simple, like transferring money and
But it's better than it used
checking
to
your
be.
account. Oh, for sure. It was bad
Oh,
at
very
first.
bad.
I will say one last thing. I'm sorry, I didn't want to cut you off.
No,
I
that's
just want
it.
to say one
That's
last
all I
thing
have.
before we change the subject. I will say it's interesting in my search for a new Simple. I have noticed that there is a trend I've seen of some of the newest startup banks to actually have like a monthly pay for subscription for services. Usually they have like a free tier, but then if you want to get certain things like higher interest rates or more access to free ATMs and that sort of thing, it's like a $1 to $5 to $7 a month.
But are there
fee, which-
microtransactions for things like cosmetics and like themes? And
Let's not get into that because I
costumes
don't want
for your
to tell
character.
people that I would pay for that.
Video games.
But it is It is a trend that seems to be slowly rising.
Hmm.
Actually paying for your bank.
Well, I did also. We've talked a lot about Figma in the past because it's kind of the premier design tool, and we even. I'm not going to bring it up, but the results from the design industry, whatever, I forget what they're called. Anyway, Figma is hugely popular now as compared to previously because
Yeah.
it does a lot of things really well. But I wanted to get an update from John, if you want, about your usage at your work. I have some comments too, but I know that you guys had just shifted to it, and I wanted to hear kind of your thoughts in the last month or so.
Yeah, we had used Sketch and InVision and stored Sketch files in Google Drive for syncing, and so before the holidays we went through the process of evaluating Figma, and right before the holidays, right before I left for the holidays, we got a Figma license. So this past week has really been my first week digging in, like doing real work on there. So yeah, it's been good so far. There's a lot of stuff to like about it. The idea that like any designer, any product manager, any engineer can just like click on the link and jump to the file that's related to their record in our system. Like it's really exciting to me. I don't know if other people think it's so exciting yet, but I think just having the visibility into the work is going to be really good, not only for people who want to see the work, but also for designers just to know that people are potentially seeing what they're doing. For me, it's causing me to want to organize my files better, just inherently. And so like, there's all sorts of, I think, good things that will come out of it. I think we've talked about this before, but I like a lot of how Figma does certain things over how Sketch did certain things. Sketch is coming out with collaboration, which is interesting timing, because that was one of the reasons we wanted to switch to Figma. But I really like the way that Figma handles components and variants and things. I think is superior to how Sketch handles it, and so just that is a win for me. But overall, it's been only about a week, but I've really enjoyed it. I think it's going to be good for us.
Yeah, I have a couple things that I really want them to solve. Like as far as design, like the tool itself, I think there's a lot of ones out there, and like once you get used to them, you just kind of use them, right? Because once they get a basic feature set, you can use XD, you can use Sketch, and they're going to work. The thing that really comes into play is how can you communicate these concepts to the people that need to hear it. And right now, I think Figma does solve those things best because it's really easy to just share a prototype link. You don't have to like upload it anywhere. You don't have to whatever. You can share a prototype. You can share an artboard. So like that's why that wins. But to me, the win for 2021 is like, can they improve their ability to see like lots of comments? Like that's the thing that's a little bit difficult. Like InVision did that really well because it was like, there was a page and they had like a comments feed for each one, and Figma doesn't do that. It's just like they're just all over the place, and it's really hard to keep track if you have more than like 5 comments going. Like I sometimes am like, I know I got a notification, but I have no idea where this is. So like fix that somehow. And then also like I have to like really manage the artboards to make sure the people that are seeing them see what they need. So I basically have to do the design, do all the iteration, and then like copy everything to a new page. So that way I can share that and them not get confused. Cause like I had some other experimentation that was like future state, that kind of thing. And they're like, we're building this? And we're like, no. Even though it's not in the requirements anywhere, when developers and product see comps, they think requirements, you know, and that's not like I want Figma to solve that in some really nice, elegant way that lets you publish. And I know you have prototypes and you can link them, but I need something else. I'd love even to be able to like share like published artboards that could be in like a Pinterest style grid that they can then like see all, maybe there's some comments on them and then they can like dive in rather than just the kind of mess right now.
So
So those are kind of my wish list for 2021. I don't know what they're planning on, but
as someone who hasn't used Figma, to your point, Tory, or just so I understand, when you share a file or something with them or mock up, does it shares like the live one?
yeah,
They can see it live?
yes.
Oh, wow.
Which is really
That's
cool.
interesting.
I just wish there were a way
Yeah.
to share like either like sometimes like a version or only like they can only see certain artboards on a page. Yeah, because they can see whatever I do. So like sometimes
Yeah.
if you haven't had time to clean up a design, there's just random crap everywhere because
Yeah,
that's how
yeah.
design process is. And I know some people are really good about that, but most designers are not because
Yeah,
I don't
exactly.
always have the
If you're sending
time.
out like a proof to a client, typically I would
That's different.
save it out. But I'm saving it in a different file type and all that.
Well, so what I usually end up doing for like, unless it's the final comps that I've had time to like polish and make sure they're clean, I have to just like screenshot stuff sometimes, which seems like kind of dumb, but like that's like a version I can quickly just share. And so that's kind of the gap that I feel is there and I see. And obviously I could adjust my process a little bit, but I haven't found I haven't found a way that works for me other than that.
Yeah.
So
That's really interesting to hear because I've had some similar thoughts. Like how are we going to handle this? One idea that I actually had today was at the file level, but you could even do this at the artboard level and the page level, but introduce some kind of badging system like early exploration, in review, ready for review, completed, that sort of thing, where you can just, and maybe you can even filter by those things, but that way, like, people can come to the list of files and see like, oh, okay, that's early exploration. I want to look at that, but I have the proper context for what I'm looking at. I think something like that could be really useful,
That would be
and they
sweet.
still can see other things, but each item or my first thought was just the actual files, but with hearing you talk, Tory, that's what made me think like even the artboards could have the badge. But
I'd love the
Anyway.
I would love. I kind of like it at every level, at least the option of it. Like, and this
Right.
is where I always felt like in InVision, back when I used InVision and Sketch all the time, I always wanted, we were doing all these like really roundabout ways to like integrate our documentation with the design. Like we'd create whole pages that were like just like explaining concepts, and they'd have flowcharts in there, and then you'd like link it and then push that up to InVision to make these like slide decks with documentation baked in, but then
Yep.
you're doing text editing in Sketch. And like I just feel like there's some gap here that like the Whimsical, I don't know if both have used Whimsical at all. It's basically like
have.
Miro or other like
You have it up on the screen, don't you?
yeah, okay, this. Yeah. Well, they have this
Yeah.
new thing where you can create docs, and this is actually I'm really, it's very new, but like you can, make your doc, but then in the doc you can add in like a flowchart into it, and then like it embeds your wireframes like right in something, and then I can talk about it around it. Like I'm actually really excited to see where it's really pretty bare bones right now and is only for the low fidelity, but I'm actually excited to see if some other apps take cues from that, because I think that would be really sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of heading into this year and seeing where we go, I was hoping we could talk a little bit about just maybe do some predicting of where we think design trends are headed in 2021.
Are
It's
there
always fun to-
awards at the end of the year if we
If we should, I mean, we'll have
we're
the
right.
episode. We can look back and see who was most
true.
right about it. Looking at this list, I mean, I think we're all going to be right, but
I did very general stuff.
design will be pretty.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, Tory was right on that one. Hit the nail on the head,
Well,
Tory.
what's funny, I've noticed if you look back through a lot of trend like articles that are about trends in 2020 or 2021 or whatever year, a lot of the things almost carry over year to year.
Oh, yeah.
Or they just
Yeah.
relabel the same type of design in a different way and adjust it slightly.
I completely agree. I've noticed the same thing. I imagine that it's trends usually start the year prior or maybe years prior.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really just like when it sort of hits that tipping point and it becomes a mainstream thing. So, but yeah, it is funny because everything you look like, I looked at a couple lists too, just when in preparation for this. And they were all like things that are already happening. It's like, okay, great. 2021, here we go.
Yeah.
But
well, because
anyway, I thought it
we
would be
think
fun to
of
do.
years as being this discrete unit of time, but that's not how, it's not how things happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like 2021 is not magically a greater year than 2020 was just because we incremented the number at.
No, you're wrong, Tory. It's new. It's different.
John's trying to be so positive.
I hope so. I really do.
Oh man.
We're gonna be all right. All right, I'll
Well,
start.
who wants to start out?
You can.
I'll
There you
start it. So for those who know me, I'm a fan of dark mode. So maybe this is no surprise, but I was actually just thinking about this to tie it back to earlier in the episode. I was just thinking about this exact thing during my bank search, realizing that a lot of banks don't yet, banks that are supposed to be like hip and cool and modern, don't yet support dark mode. And I was thinking like I believe that we maybe aren't there yet, but we are soon going to be in a place where I believe dark mode, having at least two themes, like a lighter mode and a dark mode, will be essentially table stakes for modern web or mobile applications. The biggest reason I think that is because of the fact that many platforms now have dark mode and light mode. So applications are just falling in line. Even websites are falling in line. But I think that it's going to be become more ubiquitous and more just a standard, just like mobile apps have become. And now, like, if you start a business and you don't have a mobile app, like, you're doing something wrong, most likely. And so, like, I think dark mode is going to be similar to that. Maybe not. Maybe it's not going to hit full steam in 2021, but I think it's likely, and we're going to get close. The other thing I've seen happening a lot on design Twitter and elsewhere, and I think is going to become more likely, is 3D illustration and motion graphics. So we're coming out of a very flat illustration style, and I love that, and I still think it's going to be there, but more designers using 3D tools to build graphics and illustrations and animations.
When you say 3D, are you talking more about like 3DS type actual 3D looking objects, or illustrations?
Yeah, I mean, like,
effect of 3D.
Yeah, I'm meaning more like things that have been built in like 3D modeling software and that sort of thing. I've seen a lot of still and motion graphics that are being done in that style.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think Adobe has they've introduced some different, I can't even think of the name of the software, but different 3D software to make it even easier for people to do like mock-ups and things. I know they have a whole database of basically stock 3D images and graphics you can
cool.
use. But yeah, I know that's I can see that, being a trend. And then the dark mode, I agree with that. I think that's something that's going to come out. I think it's already out a lot. In some places, I'm usually surprised they don't have one.
Right.
So I think Facebook Mobile, have they actually implemented it? I never get on Facebook anymore, but
I don't know if everyone has it, but I have it. I think
Okay.
they've been rolling it out slowly, but yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to clarify that and say my version of that prediction would be it's table stakes for consumer applications. I found it very hard to win any arguments about dark mode. Not that I press them as hard as you do, John, but It's very hard to win arguments about any sort of arguments about dark mode in the enterprise space when it's not a very specific consumer focused application.
I agree with that. But I will say that there were probably people who said that about mobile or responsive sites at one point
Sure.
in history. So I think you're right in that, and usually like consumer products lead the way in those things. But I think that's what's been happening. I think we're gonna start transitioning into like, again, like it becomes table stakes, and that's like at some point even enterprise. Not everyone, I'm sure, but it's going to be more common, I think, in not only consumer but even enterprise.
I think
It's
some
just gonna
enterprise.
happen.
I think the difficulty there is when you have an enterprise application with thousands of screens. If you build your full design system around the concept of a dark mode, I could see it maybe working. But you're essentially like you're saying we're going to spend double the amount of time checking our UI polish.
Sure.
And that's a lot to say, especially if you're talking with that many screens. I think like something like I could totally see something like Jira or Confluence saying, yeah, we're providing that because yes, they have a lot, but that's like it's a very consumer feeling application and it's, it's very robust, but it's more on that edge of things. I could totally see those types of enterprise applications being like, because I would love it.
I would also, I would also say with that, it'd probably be based on the code base, I'm assuming, and how it's implemented and all that as well.
It's very hard to redo that stuff back into a legacy application, big legacy app.
For example, like, I mean, I know these are consumer products, but like Hulu and Twitter have you could just hit a switch and it just pops, or YouTube, you just hit a switch and it pops the different colors. I'm assuming that's, I don't know we're getting into this now, but I'm just curious, Tory, because you may know more about that, or John. Is that something that they have already done on the back end where it's just they re-reference different colors for that mode? Is that
usually
just all it does,
usually it's accomplished by basically the simple answer is you slot a different style sheet in place that tells the front end, hey, render the stuff this way. So as a simple way, it's just like you're basically swapping style sheets, and that's not actually what happens a lot of the time, but that's the easiest way to explain it. You say, hey, instead of doing white background, do a dark background, except across everything. And it's really not that hard on a smaller application, especially now that there's a lot of tool sets that help you do it because, like Don said, it is kind of table stakes. So if you build it from scratch with that in mind, the process of doing it isn't that hard. It's just making sure it works in every scenario that is difficult with scale. Cool. I guess I'll do mine. Related to kind of what you said, I think that there's going to be a continued strong exploration away from full flat, which I think is really good for the industry. I think I liked flat design at the time. I think it was a good wake-up call from all of the ridiculousness that was happening 7 years ago or so. Flat was like, hey, now, this is ridiculous. We don't need to put beveling and embossing and drop shadows on everything. And then we're all like, well, we do need something. And so we've been at this trend back up towards something that I think will help us, because UX is such a new industry comparatively, especially as a mainstream industry. I think there's going to be a lot of really interesting, what is the best practice for stuff. And I do think we'll start seeing a little bit more homogenization on some stuff, because I do think that there are things that are better than others. I objectively think certain types of interfaces are harder to understand. And using certain types of gradients and drop shadows is going to be better for users, especially as accessibility comes into play. And then the other one that I wanted to bring up was user research has been a huge push. If you follow any UX blogs or article feeds, user research is everywhere. And I think this is kind of the year to, it's not that it's not mainstream, but I'm hoping that this year is a year where you see more people saying, yes, we need that for a lot of stuff and kind of starting to understand the value more. But that one's very vague because I couldn't think of anything more specific, but I wanted to bring it up anyway.
I think that makes sense. Like as UX as a concept and as a job and as a practice grows, I think it's easier to get started with UX as in like someone who's thinking about how to make something work well and who's making it look good. But what's harder is to do the research and the planning. And so I think that's going to like good UI design and sort of surfacey UX is going to lead the pack. And that's what we're sort of seeing now. But I agree with you, Tory, that at some point, everyone's going to have that. And so what's the next differentiator? Right now and in the past couple of years, like good UX, good UI is a differentiator, but that's going to eventually be pretty standard. And so what's next? Well, the next thing is probably going to be like better UX based on actual user research and like knowing the users better than the other people do, and building solutions for that. So I think that makes complete sense that would be coming up as a trend.
And I guess the clarification I'll have is I think that this is a year where we'll start seeing even better resources of how to do the right amount of user research and to push it to your org. Because a lot of this, like, thankfully, where I'm at, I don't have a lot of pushback. We actually have a lot of people who want to do interviews with users. But when I do client work, it's sometimes pulling teeth because that's hours that you have to spend. And for some reason, hours that you spend on prep are very hard to justify in a client situation. Even if you can prove it to them with past research, it's still, they're very happy to pay for designs because that's something they can hold in their hand. So I'll be like, yeah, I can make a pretty UI for you, but I don't know what I'm doing because I didn't ask anybody. So I need to ask people. And so like that's, to me, I think that there's going to be some good resources again this year about like how do you convince people, that kind of thing.
Don't you know the customer always like just tells you what to do anyway? That's just how freelance
try
works.
not to work with those kind of customers, but that is the natural state because they're paying. I don't blame them.
Right.
Yeah.
It's part of the relationship is training them to understand why you want to do something a certain way.
And a lot of times with freelance projects like that as well, or just other, our personal clients, they're not generally, they may not have the budget or it's definitely harder for them to get to use that money for that. So I totally get that. It's difficult. Hopefully there'll be more stuff out there to help sell that. And should I do mine?
Yeah.
All right. So for mine, I did kind of look up some sites and get some inspiration from a few lists that are already out there. But the two I grabbed more because I think they will be out there more, and you might see some of this more. And mine's not really UX related; it's more of just design in general. But as far as the first one, it's retrofuturism. I was thinking about that, and I really think that I could see that coming out more because you have a year like 2020. A lot of people are looking forward to a new year. They're looking forward to the future, maybe something more idealistic. So something with bright colors, maybe neons, and that retro 50s futurism style, but in like a modern era. So I could definitely see some of that coming out. And then I think diversity in the way who's portrayed and the realism of a diversity and maybe illustration and photography is going to be used way more. I think a lot of designers in general usually think about diversity for the most part more than maybe other people, but I think it's going to be even more emphasized this year, which is a good thing. I think it's great.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And I'm excited to see what happens.
Well, not
with
just
that.
in empty, and that's what I think is so hard about something like that. And I don't want to speak too strongly, but it's like sometimes it's very hard to want to be diverse just for the sake of diversity instead of for the core reason behind it, which is like being nice to people and actually caring about other people instead of just lumping people into groups, or in this case, like making design available for whoever,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I see it being more
think
authentic than like the idealistic model type shots. If you're thinking of photography, I could see it being more an authentic usage of it and less, I don't know, idealistic.
Yeah, and I think
sense.
that's something to push for too, just
Yeah.
because, like, I mean, it's right. It can be. There's some things that are more right than others, which is cool.
Mm-hmm.
I think that fits really well just into general like inclusivity, which has been a big push in recent years. I think from a design standpoint, making apps accessible and inclusive. I think that fits right along with that. So I think that makes so much sense.
Cool.
Speaking of apps.
Yeah, you have an app, Tory, right?
Yeah, what's going on in your
Yeah, you
world,
have to. Yeah,
Tory?
you have to introduce it because this is not. I want to preface that this is not a. I did not tell us to do this coverage of this.
What do you mean? You said, "Hey guys, can you talk about my app and shower nothing but praise on it?"
No.
Yeah,
and you have to buy it, and you have to.
You must buy it. No. So I'll
will say I gave Tory some money tonight by buying his app. I'm still in
Aw.
the login for the startup screen.
Well, that's good because then you can get the full experience. I mean,
exactly.
I'll talk
That's why
about
I
it real
didn't
quick.
go into it further.
I think that I don't feel too bad about sharing it because yes, it is a paid app. But really, what I'm happy to share because like I think there's an opportunity to like go over some of the thought process and that's interesting to see like why something was made. And I don't expect anybody to go out and buy it because of this. So just as a preface
really?
there, except for John,
Can
except for Pope.
Can I get a refund? Is there a refund?
how
button?
dare you charge
We have had to
$3?
give one refund so far. Well, I think that we got a 1-star review, and the person was not very accommodating of all of the legitimate fixes. In fact, there weren't really any issues. He was just reading, and I'll talk about that in a second, actually. But anyway, so I've wanted to make an app for a long time, and so me and 2 friends, and I did the design work and some of the front end polish, the Swift UI polish, but I can't take credit for the marketing a ton, though I had input in, or the actual app code. So that was John Carl and Timothy Buck. So feel free to check them out. They're both really cool guys, and I've known them for a long time. And we were like, we have to do one in 2020, and then we waited until the very end of 2020 to finish it. But even just in getting something out the door that feels like a relatively complete product, I was very happy about. Have lots of ideas for the future. But basically, in the health app, it does some of this stuff. Like health app tracks all these things, so why build a different app for it? And it was basically around the concept of totals and sharing those totals, because the health app does a lot of things around like daily averages over time periods, which is fine for certain stuff, but we found that like there's some sort of gap there around wanting to see like how much did I actually walk this year, or how many workouts total did I do? And so that's kind of why we built this. It's pretty simple. We have some ideas to make it like actually more than just a utility gap filler, because that's kind of what it is right now. Like it's not meant to be something crazy. It's meant to kind of fill this gap that we saw. But anyway, that's enough of me talking about it. I would love to hear like your comments. Really, I think that there's some issues with some of the messaging and maybe some of the ways what we show off the bat on the App Store and stuff. So I'd love comments on that kind of thing, or whatever we want to take this is fine. And I can I have the simulator up, so I can go into the app too for people who are watching.
I'm curious. I have 2 quick questions. One is like, where did the idea for the app come from? and then the other one, I'll just get it out there and you can answer them however you want, is around kind of what you just mentioned, like the target, and like what you want, like what is the value that I get out of this outside of just the health app that comes, on my phone, and maybe those two answers can be combined.
Well, I mean, the original idea came from John, different John than is on this call. John Carl.
Another John.
He was like, I want to know, and this was end of 2019. He's like, why can't I find out how much I ran this year? Like, I want a number, and there's no way in the health app to do that. Like, there's none, and there's not really there at the time. There weren't very many apps out there that did that at all. Like, I think Strava does some totals, but you have to use Strava all year basically to get it. Fitbit has that, but you have to use your Fitbit all year.
Yeah.
And so we were
Garmin has it too.
Garmin does, and I think John, you said you use Garmin a lot. So like, there are apps that have that, but it's in their ecosystem, like almost exclusively. And for some reason, Apple didn't have it. And so John's like, hey, this won't be that bad. Ended up taking us like a year to build just because we didn't do it we waited till the end to actually build it. But that was like the impetus. Like that was the initial kernel of thought, like, hey, I want to see that. And then as part of that, as a corollary, we're like, well, why can't I just share that with people? And that ends up being kind of the core value prop for this, which is see your totals over different time periods, so that way you can compare and then share it with people. Like,
I think it's a great idea for people who don't already have, like, I use Garmin because I have a Garmin watch, and so it syncs up with that, and I can sync it with, it also connects to Apple Health, or the Health app. But I think this is great, especially for people who love to use the Health app and maybe don't want to use a third party system like Garmin or, the other ones that are based just on activities. I think one thing that I didn't know at first until you explained it was that Apple Health didn't show this data. And so if that's really a big value prop, maybe make that clearer on your description. That might be say it's like the health app doesn't show you totals. And so like we wanted to make this because almost like the story you were telling, say like, we love to use the health app, but it doesn't show this. So we made this to work with that.
That was the exact
something.
feel. Yeah. When I said like, I don't understand like how this fits in for me, I also didn't realize that Apple didn't give me these numbers, because on the surface, when I look at this, it looks, and I know that it's like fitness data or steps data. I'm like, oh, it looks just like the Apple Health app. I already have that. Like that's as far as you're going to get, like, without people deeply reading your documentation, which they're unlikely to do. So I completely agree with John, and that I had a similar like recommendation too, which is just like, say something like, Apple Health doesn't give this to you, we do.
I think if you say it in a nice, just a way, that just says we would love this. Maybe don't say we want Apple to add this in, but you wanted to see your health data in a total form. I think you can say it in a nice way without being negative.
I have a couple ideas that I want to run by you, but before that, I would love it if you could like take a couple minutes to talk over the process, like your design process, and kind of what you did. Is it like, did you do user research? Did you like what kind of process did you take with this?
Yeah, so I basically, because it was a little bit more informal of a process, I threw together, like John said that, and the next day I threw together hi-fi screens. Like I just threw them up real quick. Like, hey, this is how we could show the data, because it's simple. The UI is not complicated here. And then like we talked it over, we wanted, and then he started building on stuff, and we started building it out. But then at that point, I did show to like a number of people, just to be like, hey, if you saw this, is there anything confusing? Because it isn't complicated. And then the best feedback that we've gotten on the user research side was like actually once we released the beta, we actually made like a good number of tweaks after releasing the beta, because that was actual people coming in and saying, hey, this is confusing. And we also added like the ability in the app to change your distance units and some other like convenient stuff like that. And then also just like some of the presentation of what's on the widgets and that kind of thing. So the user research did end up like informing like a lot of like the little detail stuff and like what they want to like we were trying to limit the number of activities that were available, but like that was like no, people wanted if they wanted rowing, they wanted rowing, right? So we can't like cut them out. So that makes the list really long, but that is what people wanted. So I'm working on ways to improve that. But cool. Then like the polish side of like because it's a relatively simple app, basically the polish of the UI happened in code, which I really liked. I think that's much more efficient than trying to polish the UI in a design and then passing it off to a developer and then repolishing the design. So because I was the developer on the front end of it, like the UI polish, that actually worked out very nicely. So anyway, so it wasn't a super in-depth process. And then Timothy, who is a like really good organized product manager, he basically did all of the like, hey, like here's our timelines. He came up with all the marketing copy, and we weighed in, and he did a lot of really good stuff around like how are we trying to position ourselves in the market. And also the only reason why we're successful, like as sales wise, not that we have that many, but like the only reason why we were successful is because like he's actually good at the social media marketing side of things. So it was definitely a really cool like side project team effort thing. So
that's cool.
Nice.
I think that, I don't know where you guys are planning to go, but I think that you're in a pretty crowded space here, even if you are presenting the data slightly differently. But I do think that where you've started to go with the whole sharing aspect, there's something to that. And I don't want to tell you what to do, but I think that there is my 2 cents as far as like where the app could go. And I'm interested to hear what you think about this idea, is a heavier focus on like customization and sharing, because I think that John Pope just shared his fitness totals, and I love this graphic. Like it's no, I hope this you don't take any offense to this, but this is like one of my favorite packages as far as like the design, the UI, this share graphic. Like it makes me excited and makes me want to share it. And so I think there's something there. Like you could offer different shapes for different, you could offer a story shape and an Instagram square and different shapes. You could offer different color backgrounds, different image backgrounds. You could have animated backgrounds. You could add more like distance units, and you could even add like funny ones, like, instead of like miles, it could be like miles, but in like hot dog lengths or something. Like that many hot dogs is how many, like stupid things. But I think those are the kind of things that people enjoy customizing and sharing. And I think that might be a nice like sort of next step for like where the app could go. I think that grander scale, the app could go all sorts of places, because I also thought like, what if you could have people linked up and do step competitions, and they're kind of like the app manages those, and there are apps that do that as well. But I haven't seen any app that like has a sort of maniacal focus on customizing that sort of share sheet thing that you send out there, and I think that could be pretty cool and get people pretty excited.
Yeah, and like what you said about like future state, like that's totally kind of where we're thinking, is like a lot of customization around the sharing, and more custom maybe around like we've heard a lot of people who just like they just care about the widgets. They just want widgets that they can configure in all sorts of ways. And so that's kind of giving people more widget options is actually huge because we're a smaller developer, we could actually crank out like a lot of different widget variations for people that Apple may never provide. And so we may never actually lose, because they could easily fill this gap. That's the problem with building utility apps is Apple may fill that, which we knew, but we figured, why not? We want to build a first app, but this is a great place to start. How about some dribble roulette?
Dribble me, Tory.
Bow.
Bow,
bow, bow.
It's been so long.
Bow, bow, bow.
It has. It's been a while.
Speaking of enterprise, what are we seeing here?
Yeah, I mean, so these kind of things are always interesting because it's like the table is obviously kind of inspired by material design, but none of the rest of it really is following that. So that's always a little funny to me, like when you have like a material style drop shadow under the header with the really tall table rows. It's actually not a very efficient way for enterprise applications to show data, so that would be my main concern here. I think it looks pretty nice, but the data density is pretty low for something that looks like something where I guarantee you users will complain about that. So that would be my only comment. I'm not saying it's wrong to do it this way, but I guarantee you it will be discussed.
It will be, and then it will be forgotten about a day later. I'm a fan of less density. You can go overboard, but I do think and this could maybe be scrunched a little bit more, but I think there's a significant legibility improvement when you add a little bit of extra space, especially when there is such a density of text here, which is generally hard to grok. But I agree with you. I think you're right that's a problem, and in many cases that may mean a design like this doesn't even get off the ground in enterprise, or if it does, there may be a good bit of complaining by users. But I do think that's something that would pass relatively quickly.
Yeah, and it all depends on what the specific data is that you're displaying, because if it's data that they are searching for specific items, then having less density is way better, because then they can actually find the item they want with search and stuff. If it's data that they actually need to interact with all of it or scan, like a little bit more density is actually really good because it allows them to scan a lot more without scrolling. So it all depends on, what specifically people need to do with this. And obviously I don't know in this case because I don't know enough about the context, but
I like the popularity bar. I don't fully understand what's happening there.
Yeah, I like the UI of it.
I like
it looks, I'm not sure what the secondary gray is.
And I'm not sure what the arrow is. Maybe that's the trend from
must be a trend
the day before or something like that.
Oh,
my guess is popularity is. Sorry,
the secondary gray bar is the drop.
Yesterday, or what it was, and the blue is today, and that means it dropped from where the gray was to the blue.
Hard to understand.
And it looks like, based on his description, this is
I think with a little bit of better understanding of what we're actually
the operator and customer use it. So maybe it's
I do like that.
Customer can see if they want to order that, they can see, maybe they can see that data as well and see what's popular to help them make a decision on how much Pepsi to buy or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
And I lost internet connection.
Cool.
So
let's go to the next one just for time's sake. Did I paste it in for you? I think so.
This one's easier to see on your screen too.
Yeah. The other one was too many details.
I like it. It's very simple. I feel like there's some more. How do we lose John?
Yeah, he'll be back.
Yeah. I feel like there could be maybe some more detail in the amorphic sound wave, I guess is kind of what they're trying to show, is this this sound coming from the piano. Maybe have some type of extra detail in that. I don't know if it's like some type of slight texture or pattern.
Why is this guy's piano on fire?
He's playing really good.
They dropped a bundle of smoking leaves in the back of the.
Also,
there's also a clipping issue or something where the stand or the I don't even know what they're called in the grand piano, but where it opens and it's holding it up. There's sort of like maybe they meant to have that in, but
okay, next one.
Oh, good! I only missed one. Moo cow, I love it.
I know it's cute.
Anything cute, we're all for.
This reminds me actually of that other
it does.
person we looked at.
It's a similar style.
Yeah.
Moo cow.
I really like this. I like the name. I like the colors. I like the shadows.
Yeah, I was about to say the same thing. I like the shadows, how they did that. It's nice.
They look really natural, yeah.
That's one thing I've always just personally had a hard time doing in illustrations. In more flat type illustrations like this is doing the slightly off color shadows. It's harder for me to do. I think I overthink it every time I put them in.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, that doesn't look right. I don't know.
I love doing this kind of like shadow, and I think you're right, John. It doesn't really have to be like accurate, because even this one, the light source on the bottle itself looks like it's coming from a different place than the light source on the cow's head. Yeah. So like this is not even perfect, but in general it still looks pretty good. Like you don't really notice it, but overall I really like it.
Yeah.
I think this typeface is really cool.
I do too. I really like it.
I like how the O's and the C are like the same. Like it actually, it's like a interesting, and the M and the W, so it's almost like moo and then an upside down. I don't know. It's a cool visual.
And the kerning's nice on it. I love how the C and the O
comes
just fit really nicely together.
Yeah.
Recos. That's a thing, right? Recos. Recommendations. Pope doesn't have anything, so I'll go with mine real quick.
I was on the next page, and I kind of I forgot about that.
No one will ever know, because it's not like you guys switch the order when you leave and join the call.
No one will ever know that we
so it
like
pops the
times.
latest person at the bottom. Okay, I guess I'll do my recommendations real quick. So this is not really design related, but I'll do a vague design tie-in. I don't know if you've seen the show The Expanse on Amazon. Quite good. The new season is in process, and I think the newer seasons have gotten better. The reason why I'm bringing it up is because I really like it. That's the one reason. Two, there's also like it's actually really interesting how they I always find it interesting how movies like take interfaces and like do user interfaces, sometimes really poorly and sometimes like good. And they actually have some interesting use. Like sometimes it's like, okay, well that was a little silly, but they have like a mix of like holographic interactions that are actually often like not bad. Like they're like, that seems impractical. It would probably be just easier for them to do it on a screen, like realistically, but it's like the way that they have it work and the designs they have are like, they seem somewhat thought through, which I think is cool. And then they also have some really interesting hard like actual devices to control like the spaceships and stuff, and they all like the way they design them and stuff like look like, oh well, that could actually be like a real interface. And I just think they do a really good job of like doing future interfaces without them feeling too like fake. I don't know.
That's cool.
There are some exceptions which you would notice, but overall I think they do a good job with that. So that's my excuse.
I'll just say
for bringing
it must be a decent show, because we all know Tory is very particular with his shows.
No, I
so.
like shows that don't just meander and give you
The season 2 of
fetch
The
quests.
Mandalorian was way better.
Okay,
than the
I do
first
want to
one. I
talk
actually
about
enjoyed
that
it
in the
better.
post show a little bit, because I have a couple. I had a couple things I wanted to say.
An about face. All right, let's move forward then.
And then there's this. We'll share this, but I don't think we mentioned this before. There was an article that Figma had in Coda. If you've ever used Coda, it's a like document / spreadsheet / it's kind of like Notion, but it's all like kind of like Word docs. Very cool, so check it out. But anyway, they have this thing they did where they set up how they do their PRDs, which is product requirements doc, and there's a lot of really cool stuff in here that I've actually started pulling into our process. We can't use Coda, but like the process, especially around like the launch readiness, is really cool. Like they have this like preset thing of like, how am I going to oh shoot, I have to sign in. Oh great. How am I going to communicate with the various like bigger, it's a bigger cloud of stakeholders than I think we sometimes think of, like support, the data team, security. And like, as you get into a bigger company, you always have to like do this. And sometimes it's like weird ad hoc stuff. So the way they do this, it like gives, I don't know. I'm starting to like try to pull some of that into our PRD process because I think they have a lot of really good ideas. So check that out.
That's cool.
Yeah.
John's.
Yeah. So a few weeks ago, I mentioned or a few shows ago, I mentioned another tool that I was trying out that I really liked for collecting images, reference images, inspiration, that sort of thing. This is another one that I have been just trying out as well because I thought it was interesting. I tried this a long time ago, and it kind of came back up on my radar
and then you switched
recently.
away from it, and I was angry.
Now I'm back,
now
baby.
you're back.
Anyway, so what's interesting about this is that this is just an interface. Like there's no service aspect to this for like cloud storage service or anything like that. So you use whatever you have already: Dropbox, iCloud Drive, Google Drive, whatever, or just your local hard drive. And then this is just a nice front for that. And it has a lot of really great features as far as like even things like collecting colors from the image and letting you search by that, tagging, categorizing, all sorts of interesting metadata.
That's awesome.
I came back to it and I've really enjoyed it. I think the one thing that I will complain about it is that they don't have a mobile app yet, which maybe it doesn't matter for some people, but for me, I actually do collect a lot of things on my phone, like just, sitting on my couch watching a TV show, browsing Dribble or whatever, and I see something and I want to save it, or Instagram or whatever. And not being able to do that is kind of a big problem for me. So I think that's actually the main reason I went away from it in the first place, and I'm rediscovering that, but I'm hoping that something like that is coming soon. Obviously, you'd need to use some kind of cloud service to store the images in order for that to work. But I am, and I think
Didn't you say it can connect to like Dropbox or not?
Yeah. So you can if you are putting it on a cloud service, then you could easily sign in on both a phone and a computer, desktop, and have it sync, which I do that on 2 computers. I have it sync across. It works really well. I haven't had any syncing issues.
It's basically just a fancy Finder. Like that's what I like.
It's exactly what it is. Yeah. But
I was just thinking you could just go in you could save it off into Dropbox to that whatever folder you have them saving to. But you wouldn't have, obviously you can do the tagging and such at that point. But.
You have to import it with the app because it does all the metadata.
It lives in like a library file. Yeah.
Gotcha.
So it's not quite like a Finder. It's kind of like if you use Lightroom and you select to have it like make a duplicate of the photo in their library. Everything's sort of packed in.
I will tell you the other reason why I love this is it downloads the full res image and you have it, which is the issue I've had with other services is they'll just link And if that link breaks, or if they didn't do a big enough preview down the line, this like is literally downloading those dribble shots, and like you have the full res it can find, which I think is like
that's cool.
Really neat for like long-term storage.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Popes.
Yeah, I did actually post something on there
off my
while
ad
y'all were
blocker.
talking.
I'm turning it off.
Come on, support local businesses or whatever it's saying.
Turn off my ad blocker. Turn.
By the way, while he's doing that, I don't know if I mentioned this while I was talking about it, but the name of the app is Eagle. We'll put it in the show notes.
Cool.
So
just
what
Google
Tory's
it
trying to
and
show.
pull up an image.
I'm getting there.
What Tory's trying to show is another designer at where I work at Frontline Education shared this. I hadn't seen it until he shared it, but Burger King is changing its logo back to their old logo, their retro Burger King logo, and a version of it, or an updated version of the retro one, which I think it's great.
Voila.
It looks like what I remember Burger King used to be. Not that I went to Burger King a lot as a kid, but it just, it has gives me that nostalgic vibe. Because personally, Burger King, I generally don't go to fast food anyways right now, or just in general, I haven't gone. But I like the retro feel of it. I think it helps them stand out from other brands, and it brings back the more popular version of what people like.
I will tell you, this one change is what has made me reconsider my never eating Burger King before.
I agree.
I really
exactly.
want to go eat char-grilled burgers from a fast food restaurant.
If you scroll down to show some more of the brand, it looks really nice. I mean, they really went all into the whole retro feel, and it's almost like that retro. It's not futuristic, but it's a modern retro brand.
Their colors are great.
Mm-hmm.
I like that a lot.
Yeah, no one uses brown anymore in their brands, especially a main fast food brand.
Oh, they're.
I mean, it is the main
I
color
did
of
like
their
the
main product, but that's cool.
The architectural designs that they were exploring are like very mod, which is interesting. Like they're very modern. It's a very modern style, not like exactly a mid-century, because it's more of like an actual modern. But I thought that was cool. I mean, that's what the other chains have been doing, the ones who are more popular than them. So.
But I like how it's a modern vibe with a retro design. So it's neat to me. I like that just juxtapositioning of it. Kind of that.
And in case you were wondering, this is popular with subscribers. That Win Big Banks will announce the year-end bonuses. That's also. This is why I love websites.
Scroll down to their illustration too, like on their, or shows their app.
Oh, this is cool. The app?
Or maybe it's up.
It's up here. Oh, those
I
are
love the illustration.
It's Monsters Inc. It's the Monsters Inc. title sequence. That's exactly what that looks like.
Oh, yeah.
So I think this is really cool.
Great.
Yeah, I love these story graphics. These are awesome.
Very
the only downside, not downside, but the only thing that like.
Oh, the packaging.
Oh, those are awesome. So cool. I love that.
Packaging's great.
The only thing is, I think this is a trend. Like, I think this is happening elsewhere, because I know Pizza Hut did the exact same thing and has gone back to their older logo, which, by the way, I think is awesome looking. I love how it looks. So anyway, like I think it's cool, but it takes away a little bit from it if everyone's doing it.
It hasn't been a trend. I wouldn't call it a trend yet. It might be a trend soon.
Yeah, no, I think you're.
I mean, to me, this stands out compared to a lot of. I mean, I haven't noticed many going this way yet.
Yeah, I don't know if there's many.
They have the brand to do it because they have such a classic brand, and I feel like more people buy retro T-shirts of Burger King, like at Target or something, or Kohl's. than they ever would buy an actual current or previous
At
Burger
least
King
we
logo
know
or brand.
Burger King merch will sell well, if not their burgers.
That's right.
No, now the
right.
previous logo is going to start selling because that's
retro.
cool now that it's not used.
I don't know about that.
It's kind of ugly.
It's pretty ugly. It's pretty bad.
Well, good job on episode whatever this is. 7.
Man, how have we
Come on, Tory.
come so far? 7.
Yeah, 7 whole episodes.
Yeah.
And then the podcasts I listen to are like, and we're on episode 863. And I'm like, oh, my goodness.
How do you do that?
I don't know. It's like the
That's
same
pretty-
people the whole time, too.
Yeah.
Oh, we need to, before we finish this up, can we come up with an episode title?
Sure.
Do we have any ideas? I wasn't writing any down.
I always have trouble. I need to like take notes during. I mean, we could do something about
Trendy something or trendy something.
Like
There you go.
retrofuturism.
I feel like there was something.
Just
in
say
there.
something funny right now, and then that could be a line from the podcast.
I say you just call it trendy something.
Trendy something.
Trendy something. All right, that's an idea.
Oh, that's okay because it's trend. Yeah, we talked about trends. That's good. Oh,
yeah, that's
and
what. Yeah.
as far as
And
the
trend was-
Mandalorian goes, like,
Are we in the post show?
yeah, I'll cut somewhere in there.
Oh,
Okay.
goodbye to all the listeners who.
Yeah, where
Yeah.
was we lost our awkward ending.
Okay, let's record.
know,
Maybe this is the
goodbye
awkward ending.
now.
The confusion is the awkward ending.
Thanks for listening.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
Now?
good. We're set.
Is this it?
That's
Okay,
all we
everyone's
needed.
gone. Okay, now we can
Yeah.
talk.
Oh man, we're pioneering
Okay,
the awkward ending.
why? That's the only question I have.
You didn't like Luke?
Why? What?
Well, I have no problem with them doing like ridiculous fan service. That's what Star Wars does. But why? We knew it wasn't going to look good. Like, also,
What are you talking about? The CGI?
yeah, it just looked bad. It was just really bad. It just was very
I mean,
creepy.
it could be worse. I'm not. I agree.
Yeah, well, it could look
looked
like a
not
PS1
real
person.
as
Yes,
real.
it could.
I would say that.
But it
That's
didn't.
going a little far.
It looked like it, but it's just really weird when it's like it literally looks. It looks like modern video games, which is fine, but it doesn't. It didn't look like modern movie CGI, and that was what was like.
Yeah.
Why couldn't you just have the other Jedi come back and have it be her instead? That would have been fine.
Well,
Like, why did it have to
it
be?
could have been a
Luke?
lot. Yeah. As soon as I saw the X-wing, I got excited because
I was
knew
like,
who
oh,
it
it's
was.
gonna be Luke. Oh my goodness, why? Why did they do this?
Well, I almost got more excited that it could be a new actor because that would, you
That
know,
would be cool.
as much as I love Mark Hamill, it would just be really cool if that's how they introduced possibly
It'd be like a
another
rebooting,
actor,
That
or
would have
just
been
someone
cool.
that looks similar to him, maybe a little older than, just so that there's a possibility of having Luke in other shows
Yeah.
or something. But
Okay, the bigger problem I had. So that was just like a why. Like if you don't have the money to do the best CGI, then maybe come up with a different approach, right? Like it just seems weird. It's just a weird choice to me. The problem I actually had with the narrative structure of that is you can't have things that are just completely indestructible to everything and then them not even like it's not like the Jedi even had like like Luke didn't even have like it was basically him just like wandering through the ship slicing things. Like they could have easily have been just bulkheads he was slicing. Like why set them up as such this big challenge and then just it
was just showing how hard they were against normal people, and then a Jedi can just take them. I think that was pretty.
But they didn't even fight. They just stood like it's just.
That's
like,
why
it
they
doesn't
stopped.
Make
they
any
they
sense.
stopped as soon as they like sensed the X-wing or whatever, and
Oh my goodness.
because they knew.
It's just lazy writing, and it just.
Wait, who
bothers
stopped
me. They're like, we gotta wrap this up.
The robot
somehow.
stopped, or the
Guys,
people
yeah,
stopped?
they stopped.
Guys, we'll have Luke come in his X-wing.
They stopped banging
just
on the door.
Tear him up, and then we'll have Pedro Pascal take off his hat again, even though he's not supposed to, and he's gonna cry. And
I liked it.
I liked
did
a lot
too.
about it. Yeah, and I think the like why can't the main series have actually good lightsaber battles? Instead you have like stupid like the like 7, 8, and 9 all had
Ahsoka?
like really mediocre, and then they have like sweet lightsaber battles in Mandalorian. I was like, why can't they do that in the series? But anyway,
Yeah.
because
Yeah,
those
there
were
were some good
sweet. Those were
lightsaber
sick.
battles.
They were fine.
There's a few.
Now the one, Last Jedi's, what it was barely even a lightsaber battle, but it was cool when Luke like slides under, like
Yeah.
that was amazing. But the other ones were, I don't know, whatever. I'm very
I thought
opinionated about Star Wars. I have too high of expectation for Star Wars, I think.
I did think the CGI was like not that great. I think saying it's like a AAA video game version of CGI, like that makes sense to me. That seems to fit. The thing that like,
which is
and
great.
I think
if
they
it were a
could've-
video game, I would have been like,
Right.
yeah. But it's not.
Yeah.
It's a
Right.
TV show, and it.
I
Just,
feel like they could have gotten around that a little bit by like adding some more shadows, like having him stand in some shadows or something. But the thing that really got me is I felt like they didn't even bother trying to find someone who sounded like him. Like to me, it didn't really sound anything like him. And
They used
that-
Mark Hamill. He did the voiceover. They did use Mark Hamill.
No way. Did they really?
I'm almost positive. I follow him on Instagram. I'm almost positive that he did the
Okay.
voiceover.
I mean, I'm very familiar with his voice, and that did not sound like it to me. If it is, then I'm
I could be wrong,
I
but
don't-
I
I
thought
don't
I
know
saw him
anything
post
anymore.
saying like that he did that, and then
Oh.
maybe he did the movement and stuff.
So
I
interesting.
don't know.
he did the mocap or whatever. So here's the
Yeah.
thing, like, if you just look at this out of context of the show, it's like, oh, that's not bad. But when it was moving, it didn't work for me.
Yeah.
It felt like that's a really sweet video game cutscene, and it took me out of the flow. I've got to run, actually. It's late for me.
No, he did do the voiceover.
Oh,
Really?
I didn't notice the
Yeah.
voice being weird.
I didn't either.
That's so funny. I was like, man, they got some random dude to do this voice. It didn't sound anything like him, but I guess I was wrong. Interesting.
So it says Hamill filmed Luke's Mandalorian cameo on set, and the VFX technology was used to de-age the character.
Yeah, well, that's why it made it. I don't know. De-aging is always where you start seeing those weird.
Yeah,
It's like, what was the other? There's another.
they mention this article mentions The Irishman.
Yeah,
and
that
Robert
one
De
was
Niro.
evidently
I mean, there's
a
lots of
little
different
weird.
ones.
Gemini Man, Will Smith.
Yeah. What's the other movie?
Aging works
Tron 2, the second Tron
Yeah,
movie. They
was a
I mean,
little weird.
that was pretty rough.
great. Yeah, that one was pretty bad. De-aging in general, it's just like technology is like almost there. like
Yeah.
like the technology is there, but like they haven't done it enough. Cause like full CG now in movies is like can be so good. Like
Mhm.
characters, like the mocap, like with full CG can actually be really ridiculous. It's just when it's humans, it's harder. So
Yeah.
All right, before we go, let me make a quick plea for all of our listeners, all three of them.
yeah, who
It would
gets
help
to
us a
the
lot
post-show?
if you went to your podcast listening place of choice Apple Podcasts possibly, and rated the show. Gave it a nice solid rating, whatever you feel is fair. Unless it's 1 or 2 or 3, then just don't bother. No. But yeah, a good rating would help us. A nice review help get the word out. Feel
Share
free
the
to
word.
Head out and head over there and give us a nice review. That would really help us a lot.
Cool.
Thanks for listening.
Until next time.
Goodbye.
There we go. Now, okay, that's good. Okay, I'm sorry.
Oh, I love it.